We'll jump into today's episode right after this announcement. For over 13 years, something remarkable has been happening. Rural hospitals and other small healthcare organizations that have partnered with Capstone have been achieving results and forming workplace cultures that even we are blown away by. It is truly a game changer when rural hospitals are the provider of choice and employer of choice so they can keep care local and margins strong. Far more healthcare organizations need to experience what's possible. That's why we're stepping forward in a bigger way, expanding our team of experts, expanding our capabilities by adding a strategic planning division to expand our ability to help even more rural hospitals and other healthcare organizations in 2026 and beyond. Capstone will continue to be the partner that small healthcare organizations can count on to meet them where they're at and guide them towards a stronger future. You can learn more at capstoneleadership.net.
I think some of the biggest takeaways are that number one, that these initiatives work, they are proven, and you just stick with them. There will always be the naysayers. There will always be those that say, I don't have time for this, but there's always time. It's not extra work. It is the work that you do.
Welcome to Culture Change RX, the podcast for healthcare professionals that are committed to creating a thriving workplace culture, improving the experiences of employees and patients, and ultimately unlocking their organization's next level of potential. I'm Sue Tetzlaff, your host and co-founder of Capstone Leadership Solutions. Join me and my insightful guests each week as we share actionable insights for navigating the crucial people side of the business of healthcare. Subscribe now for a weekly dose of Culture Change RX. Now let's dive into this week's conversation where culture change takes center stage.
Welcome to another episode of Culture Change RX. It is me, Sue Tetzlaff, the co-founder of Capstone Leadership Solutions and the host of Culture Change RX. And today I have in the studio with me a guest, and it is Heather, somebody I have known for many years, about 13, 14 years. And she is here to share with us a bit about her own personal and professional transformation. And I'm just so glad she's willing to be here to share about her leadership and personal journey over these years. So Heather, would you start by introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about where you work and what you've been up to there?
Hi, Sue. Yes, thank you so much for having me today. I'm so honored to be with you. My name is Heather Schragg, and I am currently the Director of Quality and Risk Management at Eaton Rapids Medical Center. We are a 20-bed critical access hospital in central Michigan, I would say, just outside of Lansing, our capital. And we have been partners of Capstone Leadership Solutions for just over 13 and a half years or so, I would say. It has affected my life in such a great and positive way. Ever since our journey started, we have lovingly titled the 212-degree journey. Yeah, I'm just so excited to be here. Thank you, Sue.
Yeah, I am so glad as well. I can't believe we're in year 3 of the podcast, and this is well overdue. So you could talk about so many things with our audience, Heather, whether it's patient experience, employee experience, even things in the area of quality like ISO certification. And so, I mean, there's just so many things, leadership and leadership standards. There's so many things. But, when we were talking about, in particular, how being in an important role and in any role in your organization's 212-degree initiative, that it's really changed you as a person, and it's changed you as a leader and a professional in healthcare. It impacts you outside of work and at work because of this. So I would love for you to just let's start with talking about looking back 13 plus years ago. What do you see as some of the big changes that you say, wow, I'm different than I was then?
Yeah, that's such a great way to explain it, Sue. When I look back at myself, when I first started at my hospital, my very first day on the job, my CEO came to me and said, Heather, I want you to lead our transformational journey change and be the journey champion. And I, at the time, had no idea what he was talking about. I went to meet with our CFO and she filled me in about our I don't even know that the ink was dry on the paperwork, on the contract, but our new journey with Capstone Leadership Solutions. And we got to work right away on our initiatives with improving our customer experience, not only internal customers, but external customers. And we quickly landed on 212 degrees as really our North Star, so to speak. And it's all about going the extra degree. I would really challenge everybody to go out and watch the video and learn about the concept. It's amazing. That has forever been kind of seated inside of my fiber. I live it, breathe it, have the license plate, all the things.
You really do.
I
You're
do.
not
I
kidding.
truly do. Yes, I really do. And really, it started there. But all of the initiatives that Sue and Capstone taught us over the years, really, we took them and ran with them. So anybody that has engaged with their partnership, really, they are true partners in this work and have been mentors of mine since that very first day. And like they always say, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. This work is not done overnight. And we do it together. We don't do it to our staff. We do it with them. And I think that was one of the biggest drivers as well, is making sure that our journey teams were, employee populated and employee driven. It wasn't managers coming up with the concepts and doing all of the work, that they were leader led, but employee driven. And that was one of the hugest concepts. But all of the concepts, whether it was communication standards or the leadership standards, whatever it was, they were slow and steady wins the race. They were not what was the term, the flavor of the week or flavor of the month. They were here to stay, and we were very consistent, and they were driven from the top down. So everybody in the hospital was doing them, and they work. They're tried and true. And we saw results. I mean, we went from when I first started, our marketing manager would not market some of our departments because our scores were so low. And we went to then turning our scores around to being number one in the state for overall rating for 4 quarters in a row, for 4 cycles. The data proved it. The proof was in the pudding that these concepts worked. And so always explaining that why, and always doing, as we said, keeping our word. And it was amazing. And so the concepts, they became part of me. And when I say that, I mean, it wasn't only professionally, it was personally. And just realizing it's not just healthcare. It's not just, say, nursing or clinical. It transforms across the board. So it's not just clinical. All of these concepts work with the non-clinical departments. And Sue and her team were there with us, side by side, hand in hand, the entire way. And then I found myself talking the talk at home, to the point where my family would then say, there goes mom again. There goes mom again. And we'd go on vacation, and I'd talk about these concepts with my family or our friends. And I started to see it, coming to life with others. And, they would say, well, wow, that really makes a lot of sense. I wonder why we're not doing it in their respective industries. And, you start to see the wheels spinning and the dots connecting. And it's all these years later, and I still am using the language and talking the talk, and, and we're reinventing. We're always reinventing. So just because you roll it out one year doesn't mean you don't need to refresh it and keep refreshing it and reinvigorating and whatnot. So yeah, it just becomes part of who you are.
Yeah, I say that a lot too, Heather. It's like I've been out of my own leadership and executive roles in hospitals since we started. Well, a year into starting Capstone is when I left my executive job to do this full time. And I do say that if I went back today and maybe I joined your executive team at Eaton Rapids, like I couldn't not do these things. Like
Right.
if I joined an organization that hadn't adopted this way of leading and caring for patients and treating each other, like I couldn't turn it off. I don't even know how else to do it now. It's the
Yeah.
only way, and
Uh-huh.
yeah, you sound a lot like me, Heather, where there's like a before and a after. Like I was a leader for a good 10 years before I learned how to use these same practices to get better and different results. And so I always worked hard and long before that and cared a
Mhm.
lot, but the results didn't move like they do when you've got, a framework and a formula and these systems and these teams and this approach. And so yeah, I
Mhm.
certainly we're so much alike in that way. It's like, yeah, we've both been through a transformation personally as we've led our organizations through these initiatives as well. Can you share a personal story where maybe outside of work you've kind of advised or mentored or coached or mentioned something that works at Eaton Rapids and works in your leadership that maybe it would help somebody else, maybe yeah, a spouse, a sibling, somebody.
Yeah, yeah. So I I like to actually use my husband's business. He owns a small business. Of course, we know in healthcare we use data all the time. And
Mhm,
actually, Sue is one that makes me really appreciate the data because that is something that, Sue and her team would actually help look at a lot is our data.
mhm,
Where can we improve? What is the data telling us? We don't collect data to just collect data. What's the data telling us and how do we move
mhm,
that needle? And that really helped us improve our patient satisfaction scores. But one thing I really like to utilize too, these concepts when I say that they can be used anywhere. They can be
mhm,
used in any industry anywhere. Um,
mhm.
you kind of peel back those layers, and I like to use it with my husband. He's a small business owner, and of course he comes home. He'll share his day or whatnot, and I've asked him just recently, earlier this week, for instance, he was having some struggles with an employee and commenting about, I just don't think there's a way to vet this out in an interview, yada, yada, yada. And I listened and I let him talk. And then I tried to very kindly just ask about behavioral based interviewing. And that's something that we've done and learned about through Capstone is behavioral based interviewing, 30, 60, 90-day check-ins, stay interviews, all of these different things that help to ensure you've got the right candidates, that you're meeting their needs, meeting them where they're at, and that there are no surprises. And so we've talked about these things. I've shared with him examples, and my husband can be very stubborn, let's just say. And I was waiting for the pushback. I was waiting for the
Yeah.
defensive response. And he surprised me. And he said, you know what? You're right. I haven't used those. And I see that there is a purpose for it.
Mhm,
And I was not expecting it. He agreed that it probably would have prevented this particular employee from getting hired and the difficulties that he's been experiencing because he admitted that he has spent a great deal of expense and time in
mhm.
training and sleepless nights and all of the other things, turmoil to the team, hostile work environment, and the like. Now, of course, we've known this for years because we
Yeah.
learned about this many, many, many years ago, over a dozen years ago. That's now a positive that has come out of this. And, that's just one example. There's so many other examples on, the positive communication standards. We say it's so much easier. You hear this all the time to put a smile on your face than a frown and to simply say
Mhm,
hi and introduce yourself and what your role is at your hospital and what you're going to be doing today with the patient. And giving some explanation and communication. We hear all the time, one of my roles at our hospital is with risk management. So I get a lot of the complaints and concerns, and a huge majority comes down to lack of communication. So if we
Mm-hmm.
take that extra amount of time to just explain things that are going on and communicating, it lowers that anxiety, that fight or flight, and opens up to having a more positive experience. That's all there. It's all there in the positive communication standards and in our, our Ascend, slide decks and learning platforms and whatnot. And so we've taken advantage of all of that too in our hot topics that we've done in the past. So, it's not reinventing the wheel. It's just making it your own and using it to educate your people.
Yeah. We were talking another time about the fact that we both become service snobs, haven't we? That,
Yes.
you
Yes.
once you start seeing that it's possible, like it's
Yes.
really possible to deliver this level of service excellence and high quality and great teamwork, that it really is possible. That then when you go elsewhere, like when I'm on vacation and I'm at a hotel or a restaurant or flying or whatever, it's like my eye is always on, is it happening? And to
Yes.
what level? And am I satisfied with it or not? And you just can't turn it off at a certain point.
No.
It's just kind of the filter.
100%. And thank you notes. I try
Yeah.
to verbally thank people and send thank you notes. In fact, I had an oral surgeon appointment, and today is a follow up, and I made sure I thanked the staff, and I try to always carry around thank you notes because I think the art of a written thank you note
Hmm.
goes goes so far to that customer service snob. Taking that away from you. I've taken that from you, Sue. And I love it. I love it. I love it. And the anticipation of seeing somebody, knowing that they've received your thank you note, it's so gratifying. It's that giving
Yeah.
is better than getting, a feeling of excitement. That is one of
Yeah.
the biggest takeaways that you gave to us, I think, is that handwritten note to home.
Yeah, that gratefulness. Like, it's just such a
Yes.
simple act of showing your gratitude. I did it recently. I realized that, for instance, I don't want to take advantage of the fact that, like I have a local dentist, and it's very hard in our rural community for people to get a dentist appointment or get established with a dentist if they're new in town, because there's a shortage of dentists. And I've had the same dentist for,
Yes.
all these years. And, I always get to see her every 6 months. And if something happens in between, and she's always there for me, and she's always keeping up to date. And there's always, great service from her staff. And I'm like, why haven't I thanked her? Like, I should not take her for granted. I know I'm a paying customer or whatever, but I'm a very thankful customer. And
Yes.
so,
Yes.
yeah, I just, ate my own cooking there not too long ago. And I'm like, I'm going to send her a thank you note and her staff a thank you note, because I'm really so glad they're here for me.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I was wondering too about, once you're, I don't want to say so hardwired in this, mature in this, been doing it for so long that it's so natural and it's just part of your DNA. I think that comes with, let's talk from the internal side in your organization. You're a little bit of a historian on this. Like, you remember when it wasn't there, you remember how you got there, you remember when your results weren't good and now they're great. I suppose now you're probably more in a mentor role or a support role or a different role than in the beginning, when there was so much change to shepherd and steward in the organization. And now it's probably a little different role that is needed by someone like you. What is it like now, like from a professional perspective?
That's a really great way to describe it. So when I started, like I said, on day one, I was charged with leading the journey in the champion role. And so that has ebbed and flowed over the years. Of course, with COVID thrown in the mix, at our
Mhm.
height, pre-COVID, we had so many teams, many, many teams, probably a half a dozen strong teams, and they were the teams, committees that everyone wanted to be on.
Mhm.
Almost as if, waiting lists and whatnot. COVID hit, and we all know what happened there.
Mhm.
Uh, you know, not only did we lose staff to COVID with people leaving and retiring, but then, as a small critical access hospital, the existing staff were tasked with doing more, with less.
Mhm.
And the real priority, was we were all just spread very thin. And so we still had our teams, but they were very, very lean. So we actually created and condensed to a super team. So the
Mm.
super team basically took on the work of all the journey teams. So it was very lean. We still did everything, but it was very small. And we kind of just went back to the basics, ensuring that we were still conducting our leadership development institutes, our staff development institutes, community events, but it was very small and very lean, basically the basics, the
Mhm.
essentials. So then coming out of COVID, we kept that super team, but then it was easy, right? It was easy. We rested on our laurels. It was easy to stay with that super team and not challenge ourselves. We didn't challenge ourselves to push back out and expand because we had a good thing going. Everybody was
Mhm.
we were a well-oiled machine. Everybody kind of knew their role, and nobody kind of really wanted to challenge ourselves, let's just say.
Mhm.
And it was just easy. It was easy, right?
But to be fair, a little bit, maybe thinking about that is, I mean, what I saw in a lot of organizations was they truly needed time to recover and they felt
Yeah,
exhausted and they might have
yeah,
needed.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. That's
Yeah.
true. That
There
is
was
true.
a sense of
That's
that I
true.
saw in
Yeah,
organizations. There was
yeah. And
yeah,
it
yeah,
was a little overwhelming to think,
yeah.
okay, to rebuild what we had. It
Mhm.
was a little intimidating, to be quite
Mhm.
honest, because we had been so established. We weren't meeting with you and
Mhm.
Capstone like we had in the beginning. And
Mhm.
really that, that really kept us on track. And to think, ooh, like we have to hold ourselves accountable like that when we had, Capstone holding us accountable, that, that's a little scary too.
Yeah.
But now, we're back at it and we've reorganized. We're back to having two co-chairs, two journey champions, an actual steering team again, and we've expanded our committees again back to having the steering team, the employee experience, patient experience, and community relations team. So we're getting back to that. So with the beauty of that in having two new co-chairs, one was with us not at the very, very beginning, like 13 years ago, but still pretty, I would say
Mhm.
at least 10 years ago for sure. So
Yeah.
has
Yeah.
some history. Myself, I've got a ton of history. Several of our executive committee members have a ton of history. And then having our committees, split back out, we're getting our feet back in, dipping our feet back in. So we're gearing back up. We're meeting every month again. So we're getting back into the groove, getting those gears greased back up. So we're
Mhm.
getting a lot of good momentum. Next week is 212 Day, February 12th. So we are kicking around some ideas for that. So it's exciting. It's exciting to see the momentum. And for me, having all of that history, it's exciting. And so I'm kind of trying to find that delicate balance of how do I fit in so I can be that support person, that mentor, the historian, and be available, but not step on toes and still
Mhm.
be able to provide all of my excitement. If you could see my face right now and my hands, I've got constant like jazz hands going and a smile like a circus clown because I love it so much and I have so much excitement for it. I feel like I could tap dance around with pom poms. So I want everybody to know how much I love it. I love it. I love it. And I want to support everyone, but not being overwhelming
Mhm.
and getting in the way. So
Mhm. Yeah,
I
yeah.
try to find that balance.
Yeah, yeah. There's so many different roles available for employees and leaders to
Yes.
be, officially engaged in the journey. Of course, everybody in their own way is somehow connected to an organization that is transforming. from good to great, great to even greater, going that extra degree, and then the next one,
Yeah.
the next one, that really does take everyone, no matter what their role. But certain groups like the teams, like leaders, have specific roles in it. And, what you were, really sharing earlier is that because you were in that, one of those really important roles in the leadership of it really helped to evolve you and grow you as a person and as a professional. And so, by reinstituting all of the structure of this, it really opens up more seats at the table, I guess, more voices,
Yeah.
not and hands, not just their voice,
Yes.
but their hands at the table to do the work. And it gives opportunity for more people to experience the kind of transformation that
Yeah.
that you had. And so that's all a good thing, right? That
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. I love it when I see the employees that are on the teams really transform and take pride in that role. Like it becomes as important as their day job of whatever
Yes.
they're,
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. I just
Yeah.
love watching what happens to employees. If there was like anything else that you wanted to share, Heather, about any of the tactics or the solutions and how they've changed you either personally or professionally, or how you go about, this is an opportunity because as I said, the time goes by fast when we're having these conversations, and I don't want to cut you short if there's another example or story you wanted to share.
I think some of the biggest takeaways are that, number one, that these initiatives work. They are proven, and you just stick with them. There will always be the naysayers. There will always be those that say, I don't have time for this, but there's always time. It's not extra work. It is the work that you do. You build it into your day, and you just explain, if you explain the why behind it, it's like anything. If you're implementing a new best practice, a new clinical bundle, whatever it is, you explain the why behind it. You get some frontline staff to champion it. They're part of the process. They get the buy-in. They're your biggest cheerleaders.
Mm-hmm.
Once you get it built into your daily work, it becomes your work. It is your work. It's not extra work. It is your work. It becomes your cadence. And especially if you build in your sacred service time, it is your work. It's what you do. It becomes you.
Mm-hmm.
And you just stick with it. Again, there will always be the naysayers that think it's just the flavor of the week. But when you commit to it and you show up and you continue to do it, and then people start seeing that it works and you're getting results and it's positive results, that's what breaks down those barriers.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start to get the believers. And here we are 13 years later, it's still the same concepts. We're still rolling them out because you're still going to have newer staff, or even us that are 13 years later, we need to have them refreshed, because then, there's so many different things in the various bundles that we still need to refresh, or maybe we get a little lax on and we need to reinvent them and re-inspire them. For instance, we updated our hospital colors, just little things, or maybe a new tagline or something. And just that little spark, to re-inspire and reinvigorate. And, of course, you want to validate and make sure they're working and make sure people understand. And there's always work you can be doing on these things. Never rest on your laurels, because you always want to continue to keep moving on your journey, right? From good to great to greater. That's another thing. I have the graphic in my head of your slide, good to great to greater. You always want to keep pushing and pushing and pushing and never, ever, ever settle, because there's somebody out there that's always chasing you. Of course you want to compare, and reach for the stars, and compare yourself to the data. But there's always one of you. Like for us, there's always one Eaton Rapids Medical Center. There's only one. And we always want to continue to improve and grow and continue to move from good to great to greater. Always, 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 with everything. It doesn't matter what it is. If it's our HCAPs, readmissions, or if I challenge myself to write. I saw it on the CBS morning program. A principal wrote a thank you note to every single student. If I challenge myself to write a thank you note to every single employee, whatever it is,
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. There's always more to do
there's
or
always
something.
more. There's
Yeah.
always
Same
more.
concepts, right? Same,
That's
the
right.
concepts don't change, but how you
That's right.
live them, we can refresh, we can re-inspire that. We can challenge ourselves at any point to
Yes.
live that in a way that's more impactful. You mentioned, it's never done, and it really isn't it, right? I mean, like your organization is never done serving its community. So it's
Right.
never really done getting better at doing that. Like you just
Right.
always have to be. John Cotter out of Harvard Business School, one of the things he says is don't declare victory too soon or ever.
Yes.
There's really no victory at, there's no
Yes.
end point. Like even when you were number one in the state, you couldn't be done. I mean,
Right.
you may not
And-
be able to go higher than, being number one, but you
Right.
can be better than you were yesterday.
Yes. And celebrate the small wins along
Yeah.
the way. Always celebrate the small wins along the way.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a feeling that some people might want to get to know you if they don't know you yet. And I bet you, are you on LinkedIn, Heather?
I
Is that a
am.
good place
Yes.
for
Yep.
people to, yeah. I think you're a great ambassador, let's say, for so many things in healthcare and especially rural healthcare, whether it's quality and risk management, whether it's service excellence, things of that nature. So I would really encourage people that are looking to have a high quality person like yourself in their network that they could connect with, very inspiring. And I know you're very supportive and helpful to others in the industry. You're very involved in the industry, I know, in certain aspects. And I hear you're even speaking at conferences now, Heather.
Yeah, I have. You've given me a lot of confidence, Miss Sue. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. It's one thing to know a topic in theory, but it's another to have lived it and be able to speak to it from a place of really having lived it and done it and know what it felt like and what it took, and then to get to the other side where the results are. So it's very inspiring for people to have people that are willing to talk on podcasts and go and speak at conferences. So any final comments before we wrap up today? And
no, I thank you so much for inviting me today. I really am a true Capstone believer and lover at heart and to my core. I'm also a member of Fans of the Framework, so you can find me in Sue's Fans of the Framework group as well. I just can't thank you enough for all that you've done for me professionally and personally.
Oh, well, you're very welcome, Heather. And it's been a joy. We've said this since Jane and I started the company, is that, the best part of this for us, and our team would echo that now today, that we have a bigger team, is that we just love the people we get to meet all along the way. And I would say that beyond the professional relationship we have, there's so many. It's more on a personal level now in so many ways that these are personal friendships that will endure time. Yeah. So I consider you definitely in that group, Heather. So
it's a great,
thank you for
community.
that. Thank you. Well, thank you. And I'm going to connect people in the show notes to your LinkedIn, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
And maybe even the website for Eaton Rapids Medical Center, because you guys are doing so many great things there for your community as its local healthcare provider. I think it's a hospital people should know. So
fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, Heather. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Culture Change RX. If you found value in today's episode and you are a believer in fostering change in healthcare, join us in making a difference. Follow, rate, and review our podcast on your favorite platform. Share it with colleagues and your network. Together, we can make a lasting impact. Until next week, keep inspiring positive change.